G'day team, it's Hamish here from Mow Tech, and today we're going to have a look at the comparisons between the 305 and the 405X. So these two models are very similar. They're both made to do lawns on the smaller scale, up to 600 square metres. They can still handle a lot of complexity, go over your driveways and pathways and bits and pieces and wrap around your whole house and do a real good job. Even though they're only made to do the smaller lawns, they're pretty awesome. So the similarities between the two, apart from the area they're made to mow in, exactly the same. They're very similar in weight and height. So weight, height and length. So we got the 405X here, we got at 9.7 kilo. 305 we got at 9.4 kilo, so really similar there. And the length on the 405X is 61 centimeters. We've got 45 centimeters wide, 24 centimeters high. Here we're a bit shorter, we've got 57 centimeters long. We got 43 wide, it's a little bit narrower, but it's a smidge taller at 25 centimeters. So really not much in that. It's not really worth worrying about. There's bugger all difference in those two there. The next similarity is the batteries, so 2.1 amp versus 2 amp batteries. The mow time is a little bit different though. We've got a 70-minute mow on this one and a 50-minute mow on this one here, the 405X. So that's newer technology, it's just sucking up a wee bit more power running, but not a big deal. Charge time is 60 minutes on both units. Cutting system is the same on both of them, the 22 centimeter cuts, 3 rotating blades. You got your skid plate, your cutting disc, and you've got a safety margin around your cutting disc. With your front wheels, both of them have the newer style wheels, which are detachable, so they click in and out. Really good add-on, where the larger models and previous versions of Automowers, still current ones, have a larger wheel, but you have to access them through the chassis, through splitting the motor open, which is not too big a deal, that's all good. You'll see in the 305, the only difference is there, because it's a little bit narrower here, they've added a safety buffer on each side here of the cutting disc, just to give that a wee bit more protection. They're both covering about the same lawn area at 60 square metres of lawn per hour. The operating time on both units, they can mow and charge up to 10 hours per day. That's the activity range window that they can operate in, which is more than enough time they need to mow and charge on and off the charge plate up to 600 square metres. If you were having a lawn that was right on 600 square metres or close to it, I would look at going to the next model up, so the 310 or potentially a 315, but probably a 310 or a 415. If you're jumping up, if you're right on the end of that and it's a high growth area, then you definitely want to go a little bit more than your base model. So the differences between these two, so that's mainly the similarities. The 405X is in the 400X series. So the 400X series mowers made to be a step above the 300s, so they're more advanced. So for instance, you have your wraparound LED lights, you have your matte finish bumper, which you don't have on the 305 and you haven't got any lights. Not a big deal, but it's a nice feature to add on. You also have an electronic cutting height adjustment. On the 305, you've got a manual cutting adjustment, which is no big deal because you don't change your cutting height too much, but it is handy and many people want an electronic cutting height adjustment. On top of that, the next differences are your Automower Connect. So here you've got Bluetooth, so you can only connect to this at home unless you add an additional Automower Connect module. And this one here has got that built in, so you can connect to your phone anywhere in the world. And then you've got your mapping and your mowing. So you've got aim mapping, which means it's going to highlight a version of the map that its lawn it's worked out and it's learnt. That takes a couple of weeks, couple of 3 weeks, usually about 2 weeks. But anyway, you've got your aim map registered on your phone. You can see where your guide wire runs through and the map of your lawn over top of a Google Maps. So that's a pretty cool feature, and that makes it really good if you've got this in like an Airbnb or something like that, and you're managing that property away from home, or you're away a lot, and you can park it up when guests come and you can send it back out tomorrow, and your lawn's always looking after real good. On top of that, with your aim mapping, you can set out stay out zones. Your stay out zones are only good if they're a large area, because you've still got a 2 to 3 metre accuracy of an aim map, roughly. Some people say down to a metre, but you want to give it a healthy margin. It's good if you want to block off a whole section of your lawn and it's like too wet when it's coming early spring or winter, or if you've got 3 parts of your property and you have one part across your driveway and you don't want it to access that part across the driveway, you just keep it around the back, and then you can let it and tell it when you want it to go across the driveway, so you wouldn't have to worry about that. You might do that, get that to do that late at night. Then the next thing is the 405's got firmware over the air, or known as FOTA. So you can update the firmware in this unit at home by yourself. With a 305 you have to drop it off in your dealer and they can do that. It is important that your firmware does get updated once a year. It's not essential, but with firmware update, improvements to the mowers as they go forward is always put in there. So as far as charging goes, both of them come with a 3.1 amp charger and your low voltage cable. That hooks up to your standard charge plate there. This is the 305 charge plate. The 405 charge plate is very similar. Underneath, for a bit of interest, not many people know about how these work, but it's quite cool. You've got your far signal wire here and your near signal. Your far signal gets your mower into the charge plate from about 8 metres out, and your near signal, that's what's key to line your mower up to the charge plate here. Your mower also comes with anchor screws. You screw them into your fixed points of your charge plate. Well, that's not too important if you're going to get your dealer to install your mower, but these smaller models are good for at-home installation. So you just do a little bit of homework and a bit of advice from your dealer or myself, and you can go ahead and install that with ease. You can just peg your wire down. You just peg it every 600 and buy your plastic screws and you're away. But overall, both these mowers are really good, really effective units for doing the smaller areas. It is important to know that if you're buying a 305, you've only got the Bluetooth connectivity. You can upgrade and see what it's up to and change limited settings and stuff on it if you buy an Automower Connect unit and go into there. But if you're going to do that, you might as well just step straight up to a 405, which you've already got built-in 4G connectivity. So a lot of people do opt for a 305 because it's by far the cheaper option out of the two. I won't list prices because they always become relevant in its many different countries, but where I am, the differences between these two, the 405X is 37% dearer. So there's a bit of a jump in between the two. Whether you think that's worth it or not, that's up to you. So with the advanced intelligent mapping versus not having that GPS mapping and mowing in the 305, you're not at a great disadvantage at the smaller end, because you're not doing massive advanced lawns that are going a long way. You can still do some pretty tricky stuff with these and navigate around some different areas, but the 305 doesn't lack out in that too much in that way. You can't see the map in bits and pieces, but you can set up remote start points. So you can tell it to leave the charge station at say 50%, go down that guide wire for 50 metres, or it might only be 40 metres, and start mowing at that point at 50 metres. So if you had it parked around the side of the house and it was only on a small lawn and then it had to cross the driveway, you could tell it to go like 80% of the time across that driveway and start mowing this bigger area across the driveway. And then another 10% of the time you could tell it to go halfway down the guide wire. That might only be 20 metres and get to start there, and then another point, for example, at 10%, and then the other remaining percentage, it would just leave the charge plate and start mowing there. So that's really critical. That helps the 305 to do really well. And I've installed ones of these which they go across driveways and patios and paths, and that's quite cool. They look pretty neat going across them as well, but it's key to get it across those areas. You can also do that with the 405X. You can turn off the GPS mowing, and if you've got a very advanced lawn which has a lot of these narrow passageways to go to, turn off the GPS mowing and then get it to follow the guide wire again as well at 3 remote start points. Exactly the same as you can on the 305. But with the GPS navigation / GPS mowing, you might call it, you want to use that intelligence of this mower to its advantage and just let it do what it wants to do. So if you've got those driveway crossings to pathway crossings, it'll remember that it hasn't mowed across there. It's going to remember it's mowed all this area versus not remembering mowing the other area, and it will target those areas when it hasn't mowed it. So you've still got those options there. Other than that, 2 really awesome mowers, and if you've got any questions, shoot them below and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers guys.